Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Every Day is a Story All Its Own podcast. I am your host, creative and storyteller Joey Medea. First off, I want to thank everyone. The relaunch last week was incredibly successful. I tried streaming to some new platforms that worked out really, really well. Greetings tonight. I'm going classical, so greetings YouTube. Greetings, my Facebook page, and greetings the Into the Outer Realms page. Into the Outer Realms is not done. If we have authors with the right material, and I'm sure that we will down the road, I'm going to use that brand. So that is a long time, very good brand. But of course, I said this last week, and I'll probably say it for the next couple weeks just to make sure people understand. When I first started this channel almost 8 years ago, it is the Every Day is a Story All Its Own channel. This is my heart and soul, the art of storytelling. And I have a terrific storyteller for you tonight. He may be audio only. Of course, Radio Wednesday nights, 10 p.m., 3 weeks from now when this debuts. You're used to that. But George is having some technical difficulties. I had him go out, reboot. George was on the show. Longtime fans of the show was on the show probably 2 years ago, maybe a little more, because of this book, Imagine That, which is a children's book, The Magic of the Mysterious Lights. And George told us at that time that he was working on a novel. An adult material novel, and here it is. It's called Righteous Allegiance. Great cover, and this is what we're going to be talking about tonight. And as I did with Mike Cobb and many other authors that have been on the program, we're going to talk about process. We're going to talk about inspiration. So if you're a writer, you're going to learn a lot from George's experience. We were in the green room trying to sort out the technical difficulties, but he said the transition to a novelist as opposed to a children's book writer is a huge transition, which, you know, it is. So there you go. So I'm stalling for him a little while he's rebooting his computer and doing his thing. But hi, Ron. Hi, Jay. Hi, Joe. Tanya. Hi. I'm surprised she was out running errands. So glad to have you here. Glad to have everyone here, whatever platform you're looking at. Hi, Karen. Glad you could make it. I think you're really going to love this. George is super, super awesome. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the very short intro, only 11 seconds, with music by my composer, my longtime collaborator, Knight Berman Jr., who's going to be on the show, I believe, in August to talk about composition. And then I'm also talking to another composer to make it. Babe, I'm glad you're home. Nice to see you. So let's do that. Let's run that 11-second opening. I'm going to come back. I'm going to read George's bio. Then I'll set things up if I need to be. But hopefully we'll have him with us very soon. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, and I do just want to say, because George isn't here yet, so I have a little bit of time before I read his bio. I broadcast live to Lincoln, and that has worked out extraordinarily well in companionship with the blog of the same name. Every Day is a Story of Its Own blog, which is growing. We had a tremendous day a couple of days ago. Had as many views almost in a day that we had the previous 2 months that we were up. So I don't know why I keep saying we, because I feel like it takes a village. It's not just me doing it, but it's everybody who cares. So this will be uploaded to LinkedIn tomorrow. So there you go. So let me read George's bio here. George Yuhasz is a 13 times award-winning author and a former U.S. government special agent, intelligence officer, and contractor. He has also worked in the private sector as an investigator and security consultant. So very impressive credentials out in the world. George is the author of the pulse-pounding thriller, Righteous Allegiance, and it very much is a pulse-pounding thriller, and the heartwarming, uplifting children's book, Imagine That, The Magic of the Mysterious Lights. His writing has been honored with numerous international literary awards, including 2 from the Independent Author Network, 2 from the Firebird Book Awards, an Indie Bragg Medallion, and awards from the Book Excellence Awards, Eric Hoffer Book Awards, Wishing Shelf Book Awards, Royal Dragonfly Book Awards, Independent Press Book Awards, and the American Writing Awards. Speaking of the American Writing Awards, I got an offer yesterday. I'm really excited, and I'll tell you more about it. The guy who made the offer is actually going to be on the show in the fall, but I'm going to be judge for an upcoming contest, in 2026, in the documentary and drama script category. And I think that's all I'm going to tell you for now. The official thing is going to come out. So that was great. Anytime somebody says to you, hey, you seem to know what you're doing enough to judge other people's work, that's a good sign that you're on the right trail. I also wanted to say too, with this list of awards that George has, I don't know, probably I won't do a whole show on awards, but awards is kind of almost a part of networking. It's a way to put yourself out there. I've won a number of awards in different categories of writing. There are some pitfalls. There are some pros and cons. I think I'll talk about them next week. I'm talking about networking and the art of showing up. And this is not just for creatives. As kind of shy and quirky worky as my mind can be, I do very well at networking. So I'm excited about that show. Anybody who's trying to start a business, has a small business, is trying to grow in their field, let them know about next week's show, Networking and the Art of Showing Up. And then the week after that, I'm going to have a writer and illustrator, Nick Pendleton. And Nick illustrated my first novel, Jester Knight, and has done other cool stuff for me. He did the cover illustration for my Minor Confessions of an Angel Falling Upward novel. And I'm really excited to have Nick on the show, and so many great people coming up. Filmmaker and actress Karen Lutz, who's in the chat room with us tonight, is a member of the audience, is going to be a guest coming up. So there you go. So let's see here. I'm going to check back in. Which title was a phrase that people used? Let me know, and I'll let you know where I got it. But anyway, let me finish George's bio here, because I'm obviously stalling a little bit, hoping that he's going to be able to come back. George earned a BA degree with a double major in international service and government from American University, and holds an MA degree in psychology from the University of Northern Colorado. He is a member of the Association of Former Intelligence Officers and is a certified protection professional life member of the American Society for Industrial Security. George lives in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Western North Carolina. So again, George still hasn't made it with us, but I am still hopeful. So I will tell you a little bit about Righteous Allegiance. But let me just, if you have children or grandchildren, and I read this book on my Every Day is a Story All Its Own. There's George. Awesome. Hey, welcome.
Thank you, Joey.
Technology.
I know I had to switch to another room and another computer, so evidently we're good to go now.
Yeah, you look terrific. Welcome. I did a total setup, so the audience is anticipating total genius. No.
Oh no.
I read your impressive bio, and I was just telling him that I read this book on my Saturday morning Storytime Live. Imagine that, the children's book. But if you're good, we're going to dive in.
Sure.
Okay,
sure.
Good. So welcome.
The
audience is welcome to the show.
Thanks.
So you started with the children's book, and let's go back just a little here. You had a very distinguished career, very impressive education credentials, and you decide to write this children's story, which has an element of magic to it. And everybody, you can go to the channel, watch that interview. This is a terrific book. But let's start there, because then it'll be interesting to talk about the transition from two different worlds as a writer. Okay. So what inspired you, first of all, to write Imagine That?
My granddaughter, Joy. I attended her 7th birthday party, and Rapunzel came in their backyard and was reading stories to the children, and the children were playing, and I'm looking around and I'm taking in this scene, and I'm thinking, I should just try to write a story for my granddaughter. I just love that setting so much, and that inspired me. and I wrote the story. It took on a life of its own. The highlight probably was at her 9th birthday, presenting her with the book as a surprise.
Oh,
And
I love it.
yeah,
That's wonderful. So we hear a lot that M. Night Shyamalan has done it. Other writers have done it. This started as a bedtime story for my kids, or I really wanted to tell. I have a longtime mentee who's working on a children's book specifically for her daughter, with shades of her daughter. So without getting too personal, are there reflections of your granddaughter and this little girl in the book?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The image, very close to her persona, I guess. And yeah.
And she's how
And the
old
family
now?
members as well.
Yeah. She's how old now?
She will be 15 soon.
Oh, okay. So when you were on the show a couple years ago, the book had already been out for a bit then.
Would you believe it's been 5 years?
That's amazing. So I think it was go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No. So you were telling us at the end of that show when I interviewed you about that book that you were working on a novel, and it was a very different kind of novel. And so here we are. What inspired you to make that leap? Go, okay, I did this children's book. Now I'm going to do this book, which is a pretty robust, really a very topical thriller. What inspired you to make that transition, that leap?
Well, I think it was a number of things. Probably most notably, I became concerned in our own country about the election denial movement that seemed to be gaining a lot of steam. And then when the attack on the Capitol building took place, January 6th attack, I just said to myself, I got to do this. I'd been thinking about writing a novel and sort of ruminating about it. And I didn't know exactly what I was going to write about. But I thought, well, this is something that I can sink my teeth into and push it forward. And that's what I did.
Right. Now we'll kind of drill down in layers without giving anything away. And you've read my book review, and everybody, I encourage you to go to New Mystics Reviews and read the book review. Or if you're on Goodreads, you could read it there. Because as you know, I am persona non grata on Amazon. I am a threat to the to democracy there. Some ironically, but yeah, we're all dealing with those changes. So what are the broad themes, George, of this very important topical story?
Well, division in our country, racial tension would be two that come to mind. Extremism is another, but subtopics or sub themes would also include search for identity. Autism is treated.
Yes.
LGBTQ is treated somewhat. Just a number of things that are currently running through and have been for a while, running through our society.
Right. And of course, white Christian nationalist extremism is sort of the bold headline. That's the driver of the novel. So topical. I titled my book review, and this is advice that I often give beginning writers: write what you know. So I shared the bio with your audience. There was an authenticity here that I've read enough of these kind of books. I've worked with and mentored novelists who are launching a new career and have had a career in intelligence. A lot of this really comes from your own experience, I would imagine.
It does indeed. In fact, several of the characters represent people that I actually have known. I took bits and pieces and mixed and matched a bit as well. The main character, Will Manley. I'll just say this: a lot of myself is in this book.
I could tell, and we all like our dreams, like we're all the characters in our books, but everything is on a continuum. And I could just tell this is someone who has lived this, which doesn't necessarily mean that it translates well, right? So I'm not saying to anybody, oh, if you just write about your life as a novel, it's going to be all peaches and cream and bestsellers. But I did feel that strength too. Now, it takes place mostly in the United States, but there are scenes and episodes that happen outside of the United States. So how much has you've been to 124 countries, or at least that was as of a couple years ago? How
few
has
more
that?
tacked on.
Oh, how many now?
I don't have an exact number for you, but
Wow.
it's over 124 now. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're still traveling.
Still traveling, but most recently for leisure. It's not
Right.
associated with work at all.
Right. So how that much I have this equation that I found in my travels. And as I always do with a guest when I bring this up, if you think I'm wrong, push back. It hasn't happened yet, but the size of our worldview and our tolerance and acceptance of others is inversely proportional to how much we've traveled and the amount of places we lived. So, in other words, people who tend to have grown up in the same town, went to the same school that's now 3 miles away from where they work, their worldview tends to be very small, and their opinions about things happen to be very big. Whereas people who have lived all over, like I have, or traveled extensively, like you have, tend to have a very broad view and accept a much broader range of socio-political, economic ideas, conditions. Would you agree with that?
I would agree. I would agree with that up until, and I'll just maybe amend what you said.
Yeah,
Not
please.
necessarily accept the different world views and things that you encounter, but rather you're aware of them.
Mm, mm-hmm.
It's just kind of a minor difference there, but
Right.
you can accept or not accept, or even within yourself have an opinion. I would add to what you just said that maybe folks that have traveled a great deal, and it's that old saying that travel broadens the mind, so to speak. Kind of keep things maybe a little closer to the chest in
Yes.
terms of expressing opinion.
Right. Yeah, I think that's my biggest salient point. And I see that there. Like, here's for instance, the big bad, right, as we call him in the business, the big bad, the villain of this piece is a Major McArdle, ex-military. We all know the stereotype, from the Oklahoma City, Timothy McVeigh, and other, and other brands of this show. We've covered a lot of these militia movements, the sovereign citizen movement, kind of trying to understand this. And there's so many ex-military there. What was really interesting is Major McArdle is not at all a cardboard, one-dimensional, this guy's a villain, the guys who are with him are, begrudgingly whatever. But the white hats are all against him. I was super surprised and completely convinced that a law enforcement officer, a journalist, they really get sucked in by his charisma. In your career, in your experience, are a lot of these guys cults of personality like that?
Uh, Certainly, they're out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're out there. Not in a predominant sense, but
Right.
they're out there. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's
And
it's interesting. Oh, go ahead.
no, 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 please, sir.
I was just going to say that I borrowed from a number of people, different personality traits that I plugged into Elias McArdle, and he's a very clever fellow, as readers will find out in the book. Yeah.
Yeah. And was that a very pointed decision to make him able to manipulate, especially and I don't want to give things away, but there's certain key people that he seems to be able to manipulate. Did that develop in your process as McArdle started to speak to you and said, "Hey, like, don't pigeonhole me, like I'm a clever guy, or was that part of your plan from the outset for him?
I didn't really have a plan, Joey, admittedly,
Okay.
but what I didn't want to do was follow some stereotype. I kind of wanted to develop him as the story went along, putting him in different situations, and even questioning myself. Okay, how would this character act? What would he do in this situation? And I'll venture to say that McArdle even surprises himself, I think, in a couple of situations in the book.
Yeah, which is wonderful.
It's
It's
fun.
refreshing. It's very
Yeah.
human.
Yes, and that word, human, I wanted to make him human. Again, not following some stereotype, but making him an unusual kind of person. And in my own professional career, I encountered, I won't say a type like him, but a character that did things and thought about things in a very, very different way. He was just constantly full of surprises. And this gentleman was an adversary of mine in a work, well, in a, how should I say, in a work environment. Very different. And I never forgot that experience. And it served me well, I think, in plugging some of these traits into McArdle.
It did, because these are really complicated times. As you know, roughly 50% of this country thinks very differently than the other half of the country, and there's a lot of celebration going on now amidst a lot of crises, and I'm really noticing that. So you can reach more people as an author with making McArdle that way. Complicated. There was never a point, because this is, obviously dangerous ground. There was never a point where I was like, oh, McArdle is actually making sense to me. On a heart and minds kind of level, right? As you would say in that world. But I took him seriously and I listened to him. I didn't just dismiss him out of hand.
That's great, because Steve Burgess, another character in the story, certainly did. And other people might not react as you have or have not. They may take a totally different tack.
Yeah.
But one of my goals for writing this story was to get people to think about these issues and to confront themselves. And ultimately, and I think most of us do, no matter what side of the political spectrum or social spectrum along that continuum, wherever you are, that people will treat each other with decency and respect, and there will be interaction that hopefully is constructive. We don't always have to agree,
Right.
but certainly follow a path where we are trying to do good.
Yes. Yeah, because I'm of the mind, and I'm assuming you were right deep in the midst of it from another point of view, but I was a teacher. I was trying to teach kids to be, creative citizens. I was running an acting school, so on and so forth, a young theater company. 9/11 happened. And there was never a pause to say, why was that? Like, how does this happen? Like, how are we not complicit? But there were a few people. There was a professor from the University of Wisconsin who I think got dismissed. Bill Maher started to approach it, and I was really kind of disappointed in that. But this is what you accomplish. I could see your book opening dialogue, because you use a huge microcosm of people.
Yeah, and again, that's one of the goals, is to get people talking to one another. The Lenape elder, the lady, her place in the book, I think is interesting in that sense. I didn't want this. This is not, and I will say, folks, those of you who are watching and anybody else, This is not, and I think Joey, you would agree, this is not a typical thriller book. It's not. There's action.
Mhm.
There's some tough scenes, but I think it's more than that. It's more of a, and I came across this genre the other day, Joey, the contemporary novel, which
Mhm.
combines genres. And I'd
Yes.
never come across that before. And I said, gee whiz, this is this sort of, if anybody was to describe or put my book in some kind of category or genre or whatever you want to call it, I hate to be pigeonholed, you can tell that.
Yeah.
Um, it would be this because it combines genres.
Absolutely.
There's
And I
romance, there's action, there's suspense. It's a thriller.
but there's also the indigenous spiritual aspect. There's a which we're
Yes.
going to get to, and there's a very I wouldn't even call it magical realism, but the fox who you had said to me when you sent me the when you sent me the book and you sent me the material, you said like I'll be curious to see what you think of the fox. So I have all of that on the list. Before we really get into the meat and potatoes of all of that, I was talking to my mom today, who's a voracious reader, and set me on the path of being a reader, which set me on the path of writing. And we were talking, and audiences are much more educated and able to handle that genre mixing. The movement of time periods. You play with time a little bit in this book. So it
Yeah.
starts in a certain place and then some things happen. And then we go someplace else and we don't hear from like one of the characters you started with for a long time. Um, and audiences are better able to handle, and ironically, as much as TV long form narrative sometimes gets a really bad rap from actors and it used to be that way before HBO and things like that, FX. Audiences are much better trained, which allows a novelist to use more devices and to not be off-putting. And that's really what that contemporary novel comes where like a publisher might have said in the old days, no, like scrap that stuff. It's just a thriller. It'll drive a thriller. If this ever got made into a movie back in the days, they'd probably be like, yeah, that's the only way we can sell it as a straight thriller. So certain things have to fall off the back. But it's wonderful to have this freedom now as writers.
It is indeed. It is indeed. And I feel it. I feel it strongly. It's ingrained in me. I like that freedom. And there's a lot of, and you know what they are and who they are. There's a lot of associations out there that prescribe formulas, they prescribe styles, and in my view, they take away freedom. And I guess I'm a rebel in that regard. I just refuse to do that.
Yeah.
Um, I just won't do it.
And you know what? It's when it works, and the audience knows. There's another contemporary writer who I really like, and I would suggest his work to you. I'll send you a follow-up email with the link to this show for you from YouTube to share. But also, this man named Mike Cobb, who's been on my show twice. Same thing as you, probably about the same age, and same thing. Very intuitive writer, not analytical, not a lot of outlining. Really lets the characters talk to him. Does a lot of research. He does a lot of true crime, Atlanta-based true crime. So, do you know Caleb Carr, who wrote the Alienist books?
Yeah, I know of. Yes.
Yeah, Mike is like on the caliber of Caleb Carr. He's a wonderful writer. Someday I'm going to introduce you to, but I'll start with sending you some links to Mike's work. And it's the same way. And I'm going to do one of my solo episodes on this program about analytical and not verses, but analytical and intuitive writing, because I outline the heck out of everything, and I do character bios and backstories, and that works for me. Otherwise, I have a lot of fear going out into the wilderness. But you two are wonderful examples of it really does work. It really does work for some people.
I think it does. It certainly works for me because you use the word intuitive, and that definitely describes me to a great extent in my writing. It's of course going back to what you said, and I follow this too. When I made the decision to write something that you know for your first novel, I followed that. But then from there, I wanted to write it like I wanted to write it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the,
Yeah, and
it's the
that's
best way I can describe that, Joey. I mean,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and what that gets you, or what that demonstrates, and this is another episode that I'm going to do down the line, is your vision and your voice. How you see the world is your vision. You have a very clear worldview, and your voice is very strong. And the voice is strong is because you didn't kowtow to anybody or let those kinds of things happen. I would guess though that in your career, in intelligence work, security work, all that, it was a pretty good balance of analytical and intuitive, right?
yes, and
Yeah,
sometimes shaded more towards one or the other
yeah,
in terms of strength.
right,
Um,
yeah.
Sort of leads us somewhat to some of the traits of the fox.
It does. One last thing I want to ask you because I was really intrigued. Um, did you consider using a pseudonym at one point, and if so, why?
I did, and I really struggled with that because I knew that I was going to get some pushback and even stronger reactions in the form of threats writing this book,
Oh,
which I
okay.
have. And I just made up my mind. No, I'm going to put myself out there and let the chips fall where they may. You know, I've never really run from anything in my life, and I'm not going to start doing it now as an author. And so, but I did deliberate over that quite a bit. It's in fairness to my family, fortunately, no problem there. It's everything seems to come to me, but that's okay. And I've tried to handle that with as much. I won't call it grace, but I will call it sincerity. Thanking them. You please express your opinion, that kind of thing. People that I've talked with on the phone, and people I've returned messages with. And again, I think in its own way, not to be condescending by expressing this to you, but showing people that look, I'm not gonna do what you do. This is the way I act, and I want to react to what you're saying, and I want to do it in a respectful way
Right.
and in a decent way. So, but again, that's me, and that's what I follow.
I have been there with the historical education characters that I do in a form called Chautauqua. I have portrayed Che Guevara, who I'm sure you know from your work is an intensely complicated guy, and Allen
Yes.
Ginsberg, and done them both in Oklahoma, in a very red state. And I had police, not escorts, but I had police presence because we faced threats.
Yeah.
Um, and I had one woman come in my face and almost cut off my nose when she was waving her paper so
Whoa.
vociferously after election. Yeah. But there's something about the power of what we do as storytellers. See, that's why we're here. Every day is a story all its own. And it's hard to exercise that power as a storyteller if you're hiding behind layers of, pseudonyms or publicists, but to go, this is the story that I'm telling. I believe it has value. And
Yes.
yeah,
I think using a pseudonym, I came to the conclusion that it just wouldn't be honest. Um, Particularly as a storyteller. Now, there might be other reasons where a pseudonym would be appropriate, and I'm not going to discount those.
right,
But I think for us as storytellers, um, it's an important issue. And I take somebody once asked me what I value as a writer, and my response was, um, I feel it a strong responsibility to bring my best efforts to telling a story, and hopefully it'll be thought-provoking and entertaining, and it'll be a kind of story that encourages love and kindness, awareness and respect for our natural world, and just a lot of good things. And I believe in that fervently.
Yeah.
I want to bring my best to whatever I do.
You are succeeding. I want to I know you want to talk about Fox, and we'll get there. I want to set up a few other things first, but I just had a thought about all of that. In my book review, I say that your president could have been written by Aaron Sorkin. And he very much is an idealist, and the kind of president that I think so many people would like to have. Do you think we've had a president like the president you wrote? And if so, who? And if not, do you think the American public, the American psyche is capable of, that type of president?
Well, that's a real loaded question, Joey, but I'll try to answer.
Yeah, navigate it the best you can.
I'm not being critical by any means. I'm just sort of reacting to all of that. Yeah, I certainly think the American public could handle having a president, and as I mentioned in the book, a president for all people.
Yeah,
truly for all people.
Yeah.
And who have we had in the past? Well, probably FDR.
Yeah,
would be one. I think John Kennedy would be another. Dwight Eisenhower would probably be another. So those are three examples right off the top of my head in terms of men and the character that they brought to the office. And by the way, I'll just put in my own 2 cents on this.
Yeah.
I really believe this. I think when we look at candidates or past presidents, considering future presidents or current president, that we look at character first.
Yeah.
We look at competence next. And after that, we should look at courage.
The 3 C's.
Those three, yes. If you have that trifecta going for your president, I think that the country is truly in good hands.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a cluster, with the exception of Harry Truman squeezed in there. That's a cluster of successive presidents over almost 2 decades you have there, that you mentioned, decade and a half. So that's really interesting. Hopefully we'll get back to that. So thank you for that, for your honesty. So your childhood plays into this book. What is your favorite childhood memory?
Well, I grew up on a farm in Pennsylvania. My dad taught me the value of hard physical labor. I had a Native American grandmother who spent a lot of time with me, actually raised me, because my mother was away most of the time. And she taught me about plants, healing energies, the animals, spent a lot of time in the forest with her. And it was grand. I had a very idyllic childhood that way. But one of the memories, I could go on and on about my grandmother, who I absolutely adored. But my great-grandfather, this memory I have, came to live with us for about 3 years, and he and I shared a room, played cards. He taught me a lot about cooking, a number of things. But the last year he was with us, and it was Christmas, and I was 14 years old, he gifted me a book for a Christmas present. And the book was The Story of the Secret Service by Ferdinand Kuhn. And I didn't know what the Secret Service was from anything. But I read that book deep into that, I guess, holy night, Christmas. and was enthralled by it. It's interesting because I still have that book. I'm in another room now, or I could put my hands on it where I was before and just show it to you. But he inscribed it, and he knew something about me back then. I think he knew that I might be destined for the career path that I took. And henceforth, you'll probably notice inside the book, it's dedicated to him.
Yes.
And the thing that I say, I thank him for the book. You started it all.
Yes,
and
sir.
that he did. And that's to answer your question, that's one of my favorite memories, certainly of him and us together. And yeah.
Thank you for that. Because it shows up very clearly in the book. It feels like it's the bedrock where everything springs. So another formula that I like to use is that basically place plus the main problem drives the character or illuminates character. So place is incredibly important in this book, as with so many. In the review, I mentioned that it's like Stephen King in two senses. We have a very clear sense of the town where the bulk of the action happens, and you have a very wide spectrum of people in the town. And you said, you cover autism, you cover LGBT. I didn't want to list them on my note here, but I mean, you have farmers, and you have journalists, you have law enforcement, you have school teachers, school principals, administrative staff, so on and so forth. Are these modeled on people that you knew? Is this town somewhat a town
Several.
like you grew up in?
Yeah,
Yeah.
several from a small town. I was able to borrow from them.
Yeah.
And I felt that a small town was appropriate, certainly for the plot and certainly for the characters that would be involved in it. And the ultimate effects that this movement might have on small towns, not just where the story is taking place, but all through America. And I wanted that to be impactful.
Yeah. Yeah, and it really works. If you had taken it and put in a city, suddenly it's heat or it's 24. The scope, it takes longer to get places. The people are more diffuse. They're not from the place. So that macro, micro, what's happening on that large level when a target is selected, that becomes very, very personal, very, very concrete to the people who are going through it. So when the town is, I'm trying to be careful here, I don't want to ruin anything, but the town is under semi-siege, let's say, we really feel that because it's so personal. And I love that because, again, that wide plethora of characters on the continuum, and that's another one I'm going to do, that every character in your story should be some expression of the theme, and you succeeded very well on that, whether intuitively, analytically, you set out to do that.
Thank you.
Every single character, so it makes hard to dismiss anything out of hand. I did want to go back to McCardle for a second. Was there any point where McCardle was talking to you that you said, wow, this guy's making a little too much sense, I gotta shave a little, I gotta backpedal off this guy because I don't want to give the wrong impression?
Not really.
You had control of him.
Yeah. He didn't grab me that way. No.
Yeah. Sometimes it's astonishing because I would imagine there will be some people who read the novel and vibe with him, as the kids would say.
I've heard that already, Joey.
Okay. All right. I was wondering.
That's a great observation on your part. I have received that feedback. And a lot of people, there are people that absolutely detest him, and there are people that love him. They just think that he's this, how else to describe it, lovable rogue who, sticks to his beliefs and is very articulate in expressing them. Yeah, I mean, he, I guess the word is enigmatic. I mean, he's just that way.
Yeah. and very real. I mean, we live in a world of disruptors and provocateurs and manipulators, and a lot of them, as I talk a lot on the show, are very forward facing right now. They're in positions of power, and the people right behind them are also manipulators, provocateurs, and some people drink the flavor aid. They're at the
Yeah.
punch bowl for the whole dance. um I just tell you quick thing, because I set this up, to be creative conversations. Um, I had a social justice theater company, and I wrote a monologue about gang members and white supremacists. I cast a really good guy. He looked the part. We were doing a big fundraiser in West Virginia, but in northern West Virginia, between two major universities. And we had rented this space, or the board did, or it was given to us, and we're doing this fundraiser. And the city manager is standing in the back of this hall at the doorway, watching as this young guy is doing this story about how he got radicalized and he grew up in a bad neighborhood and so on and so forth. And he does the whole journey. George, I had done hours of research and interviews for a 5-minute monologue. This guy goes up to the city manager and he goes, "This guy's really making sense." And as a writer, you kind of go, well, that's the power of our work, but that's, some of our big bads, some of our, because the guy didn't know the context. He wandered in from like the wedding next door. He's probably, back and forth between the bathroom. But that was really kind of, and I think the city manager was like, that's really impressive, but it's also scary, because he was a big supporter of what we did. So I've experienced that weight of, oh, geez, we got to make sure to contextualize. I did not for a second, just to be clear, think McCardle was in any way a hero. He's clearly the big bad. But yeah, so you've experienced that. Wow. It's heavy,
Yeah.
right?
It's heavy stuff.
As a
It's heavy
writer.
stuff. But also tried to, and I hope I was successful at this, at demonstrating how someone can be seduced into that milieu.
Yeah.
And it's happening all the time. It's happening as we're speaking now.
Yeah.
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 And my research, what research I did, a lot of it I just wrote again from my own experiences and what I know. But the research that I did also involved interviews with supremacists that I know.
Wow.
And I won't say how I accomplished that. In all fairness to them and me, but it was very insightful. And some of that, I won't go any further than that. But
thanks for sharing that much.
Sure.
We talked about the indigenous and the native, and you had genuine experience with it. Have you gotten any pushback? There is oftentimes a lot of pushback on us old white guys when we tackle that information, but you have a lineage, you have a connection there.
I do, and I haven't had any pushback on that, because again, I certainly want to represent my lineage, my heritage, again, in a respectful way and an appropriate way. And I believe I did. I certainly tried hard to do that. But I also wanted it to be an important part of the story. And so people could also, in terms of Will, see the conflict between embracing his legacy, his heritage, with the duties and responsibilities that he had in terms of career as an intelligence officer. Right. And, that's very real, very real.
Yeah, that parallels your life. You're saying very closely. So let's get to it. So, the indigenous culture is very grounded. The spirituality is very grounded. But then we have this character that weaves through the story, and it is a wild fox. Just take it from there. Tell the audience as much as you'd like to about all of that.
I'll just throw out a few things, and you're so good at following up and sort of developing more to the story. But as you know, I like magical realism.
Yeah.
And that's almost a contradiction in terms to me. I mean, when I think of magical realism, that in itself, but it also correlates with the fox as being sort of a creature that is in between dusk and dawn, a night being. There's just a lot of things like that are imbued in the behaviors and even the spirit of the fox, and it's one of my animal guides, the main one. They're probably one of the most skilled beings in nature. Very adaptive, just very, very skilled. There's 21 species of foxes in the world as I know it. They can be found everywhere in the world. There are foxes.
I was unaware of that.
Yeah. They're it's but I love them, and I love their in folklore. They've been associated, of course, with shape shifting.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't go any further than that with there really is magic to them. And my first encounter with the fox was the one that set the tone. I was maybe, I'm going to say 12 or 13 years old, and I was in the forest by myself, and I spent a lot of time in the woods and forests in Pennsylvania, particularly growing up. And I came upon a fox, and I'm not sure if I came upon it or it approached me. To this day, I don't really know.
Understood.
But probably for about 20 seconds, as best as I can reckon, that fox stared at me, and we just locked, our eyes just locked. And it was one of the most magical things maybe the most magical thing I've ever experienced, because those burning ember eyes, that elliptical shape that they have was so, it was just seeing right into my soul. And wow. I kind of get goosebumps just talking about it.
I can tell. I can feel the passion. Yeah.
And ever since then, it's just been a favorite of mine. I didn't feel any malevolence at all. I did feel, strangely, a kind of caring. And the fox chooses the people in humans, the ones that it wants to protect or guide. And I believe to this day that the fox chose me, and it's been with me ever since, because practically everywhere that I've lived, there's been a fox. Just about, not all, but just about every place that I've lived, I've had encounters. Not like that one though. Different kinds, but this one was just so highly personal.
Yeah, thank you. No, thank you for sharing that. And it works. It belongs there. I am a huge fan of magical realism. I think it's right there with the contemporary novel. You don't have to set up any parameters of the world. It's not a
Bless your
it's
heart,
not
we
a
share that.
fantasy novel, right? It's just there. It exists
Yeah,
because in the world that the writer has created and invited you into, which is what they do. They entice you in through those first early pages, the inciting incident, and all of that technical stuff. Um, hey, if you want to spend time in this world, magic is part of it. And, and that goes back to Imagine That. It's very much the case in Imagine That.
yes.
There's no wizard character who, opens up the book and explain, or there's no going into another world in order to. And it was amazing. I loved it. And fox is one of my totem animals, along with crow and the red-tailed hawk are my three main totem atoms. So I was right there. I understood that. I always have a crow feather in the visor of my car anytime that I'm driving, and crow's my protector messenger. So thank you. You talked a little bit as we're wrapping up the hour. You talked a little bit about your process, but tell us more about, this show is really aimed for fellow creatives. So is there a certain kind of day that you write? Do you set out to write X amount of hours? What's your process?
I I guess my process defies process.
I love it.
There isn't one. I sort of go as the spirit moves me. And I found one of the challenges I've had as a writer, and I'm sure many writers who are watching this program now and others certainly experience finding time to write. Um, that's been probably my main challenge. Life gets in the way. I've had a lot of health issues particularly the last couple of years,
Mhm.
that have really set me back. And again, that was part of the struggle of getting, as I've mentioned to you, I guess a few times now, getting this novel to the finish line. But as the spirit moves me, I write. I really write from my heart in an intuitive way. Uh, I try to write about things that are important to me and that I think and believe that are important to others. And in that sense, uh, I like to think of my writing as a kind of sharing, not necessarily my own experiences, but more in terms of connection and connecting with people and sort of that type of sharing. Okay, you're reading what I wrote, and maybe you give me some feedback, or even just in thought form, you say, "Well, this writer really got it right," or "This writer, oh, I wish they would have. I wish he would have or she would have expounded on this a little bit more." I mean, however the feedback comes, and if you're ever so blessed to sit down with someone like you have read my book. We've talked about it a little bit, but there's been give and take. If you're so blessed to have that uh, come into your life, where you sit down with someone who has read your work and you can really talk about it, and you have that sort of, in its own right, a creative reverberation, if you will, back and forth, and that's exciting. I find that extremely exciting, and just another way to grow.
Excellent. What is your so as you've been getting feedback from readers, we heard about some of that, but has there been any kind of response where you went, well, I had no idea that was in there, or whoa, that really kind of, something that gave you pause or thought?
Yeah, a couple of ladies have remarked to me how surprised they were that again, I'll give away just a little bit of the story from a romance angle, that McCardle and another character uh, uh, became romantically involved. I mean, that
Yeah.
was just a total a total surprise. But again, in an intuitive sense, I threw that in there thinking that, well, this is different and it could happen. I mean, sometimes what may seem like the most unlikely outcome manifests.
Yeah.
It's just, you talk about magic. There's some kind of magic working there. It's just, yeah.
What are the first that did they buy it? Did they think it was legitimate, or was their position like, oh, this would never happen?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, good. That's a huge credit.
At least both those ladies that I talked to that wondered about that. But it was just so shocking to them, that.
It was. I totally bought it, and I watched it unfold, almost from the offering of the water bottle. I was like, oh, this is not going to go how law enforcement hopes. But we want to be careful not to give stuff away. But when I was a young theater student in college, I was 17 years old, and I was introduced to the idea of that, and I'll be delicate, there's another term for it, but the Madonna prostitute. And I really saw that in the journalist, really getting sucked in by the rebel bad boy. So I bought it 100%. I hope the audience is intrigued. You're gonna have to find it. You're gonna have to find out, folks. That's all we're telling you. But was there I think we did. We covered that, and I'm gonna put all of your information in the chat room at the end of the show. I'll put it in YouTube when I process the video. There's certain steps they make you go through before you share it and all that, and catalog it. I'll do all of that because obviously you like to hear from your readers.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Very much. And I love to hear from readers.
Good. And then the last question, here, I'm going to put this. This was a question that was on your sheet, which was very helpful. What was your greatest challenge as you went along doing the novel?
Again, finding the time, Joey. And again, life just getting in the way, with family. Illness was a major problem in that sense. I wanted so much to get into the writing, but I just didn't have it in me. I mean, I was really in a bad way. And over a couple of periods, lengthy periods of time. And it made me a little crazy, to tell you the truth, because I felt this, this drive. I really wanted to keep pushing this novel along. It was really important. So I would say that was probably the main obstacle to my writing. And again, the usual, I suppose, developing characters, flow of the story, those types of things I tried to pay attention to. And as I was, again, writing from in a major sense, intuition, I still wanted to be mindful of, okay, you're writing this stuff, but okay, is this working? I kept asking myself the question, exactly this question, is it working? And that was helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. It does not ramble. It's very tight. It never bogs down. I'm thinking of other things that I specifically said in my book review. It is a page turner. But there is backstory. So you intuitively did that very well. I really do want to introduce you to Mike Cobb. Send you a little bit of information about him. And I think you guys should get on, maybe support each other. And that's the idea of this show too. So before I let you go, I hope your health is doing a lot better. That's first of all. So we'll keep good thought about that.
Thank you, Joey.
And is there anything in this conversation that I missed, got wrong, anything you want to clarify, or anything you want to add? I want to give you the last word.
Oh, well, I just appreciate being on your show, and it's just great to see you. And I'll give a big shout out to everybody watching the show. Appreciate you being here, and appreciate you supporting Joey. He has a great show, and all good intentions. Bless his heart.
Thank you, sir.
No.
There it is, guys. They can get it all the regular places, I assume.
Yes.
Yeah. So go out. It's good. It'll make you think, and especially watchers of this show, we just finished 65 episodes of Sinister Mysteries, where we looked at a lot of the things that George talked about, and especially talks about in this book. So I know we have a built-in audience for this book. You're going to love it. I highly, highly recommend it. So I'm going to send you all out with the show closer. It's 11 seconds. I'll see you next week. I'll be talking about networking and the art of showing up. And please, this is not just for creatives. This can be a benefit for anybody. George, I'm sure in your career, you know the importance of networking.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you all very much.